This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about Switch 2 already having an OLED in the works, Kojima's return to action stealth having a long wait ahead of it, Microsoft testing Steam integration in their store, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 85. I am your host, the man who has an itch he is finding hard to scratch, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who would give SGA a hug in real life if he could, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Hasn't been bad. Honestly, it hasn't been really all that eventful. Thinking out the top of my head, like, really, nothing really much has happened too much. Friday, I watched my niece and nephew because my sister had a women's group that she was going to, and so my mom went with her, so I was watching the twins. They enjoyed, coming over. My nephew, he was getting over. He had strep throat, so he was recovering from that, but he was well enough that he was just enjoying himself. Ordered them some pizza, and then afterwards, later on, they decided to play some games. So at first we were playing Stardew Valley together, and then my nephew said, I want to play Mario games. So while I was playing Stardew with my niece, I put in Super Smash Brothers for him, and so he was enjoying himself. I mean, I had to pause every now and then just so I could set each match for him, but he was fine by himself. And that was one thing I will say is that I had to do I was doing a system update before all that was going down, and for some crazy reason it messed with the Wi-Fi on my computer, so it was not working at all. So I had to I really didn't want to have to do this, but I had an Ethernet cable. It wasn't long enough that I could have it set up permanently, but it was long enough where I could be like, okay, I can run this through the house and it should reach my computer. I just had to tell the kids to be careful because I don't want you tripping over this or anything. But I was able to get that set up for the time being until later on I got everything situated. But yeah, that's really everything that's major that's happened this week.
Cool. Well, for my week, so Friday was our 16th anniversary, so unfortunately we couldn't actually do any regular anniversary stuff on our anniversary because we had an event at the church that we needed to help with on that evening. So instead, Saturday morning, a friend of ours came over the night before after the church event, and she stayed the night so that we could leave early in the morning, and we left early Saturday morning to drive out to Louisiana and then to Mississippi after that, so we could get my wife's last two states in, and did some we got some local food at each of those places. Went to a place in Louisiana, and that got lunch there, and then got dinner in Mississippi while we were there, and we went to bed pretty early because we were just exhausted from getting up really early, and headed out the next morning and just drove back. So yeah, it was relatively uneventful. We didn't do a whole lot while we were there. It was mostly just getting some time together, listening to stuff. Ended up not being quite as much of a hangout time. Well, I should say we didn't get to do it. We didn't do any extra stuff. Basically, it was basically just we had 2 days of lots of driving and chatting and listening to stuff, and so it was good time together. Time away from the kids, and kids had a good time separate from us and all that. And I had Monday off because I knew I was going to need it after all that driving. So Monday, I ended up just using it as a be productive day. So I initially did some edge trimming. And unfortunately, I had tightened the head on it too much. And so when the line, the edge trimmer line, really, the orange stuff, when it accidentally got too short to where I needed to pull more out, I couldn't get the head off, so I couldn't pull it back out, which means I had to stop working with it. And then on top of that, my mower's been having issues, and I couldn't get it running, so I was able to borrow my friend's mower, who's just down the street from me, and so I was able to actually get the mowing done. And then we had like big, huge storms on Monday, to where we were under tornado watch. I mean, it never got to the point of being a warning, so we didn't have to take shelter or anything. But yeah, and then trying to think what else. If there was anything else eventful. Really, the only other thing is this one's kind of technically in fluctuation at the moment. So depending on how things go, I may end up cutting this out of the podcast. But one of my coworker, who's basically in the role right above me, he's not like my supervisor, but he's in between my manager, who's my supervisor, and me in terms of his role. He's moving on. And so I was offered to take that position. And I kind of had to think about it a bit, think and pray about it a bit, and talk to some people about it. And I've ultimately decided I am going to accept the offer right now, well, conditionally, or potentially. So basically, I will say, yes, I'm interested. And then my boss has to negotiate it with the bigger boss to figure out what kind of compensation I would get for taking on the increased responsibility. And then come back to me and have to, give me the offer and then see whether or not it's something that I would be willing to do, which really just depends on whether or not the increased responsibility is going to come with enough of a pay raise to feel like it's actually worth it. Because if they're going to add a bunch of responsibility, I expect a pretty decent raise for that. So we'll just kind of see what happens with that. I'll talk to my boss tomorrow morning and get the ball rolling at least. So we'll see how that goes. I've been kind of back and forth on a lot of stuff with that, and so right now it's just basically I'm looking at it as I'll give it a shot and see how things go, and hopefully it will challenge me enough to get me more motivated to I don't know, I guess push myself more. So that's about it from that standpoint. Oh, something just completely unrelated that I did on Monday as part of my being productive was I decided to the plan was for dinner to make homemade nachos. And I decided, I've never done my own tortilla chips before. So let's do that. I mean, I used, pre-made corn tortillas and then I just cut them up and fried them. But I did that. That came out really good. Although I snacked on them so much while I was making them that I ended up not having chips for dinner. Because they were just really good. And I ended up just, doing the other Mexican stuff in burrito form. But what I also decided to do was I had bought a bag of sweet potatoes a little while ago, and I decided to slice those up and make potato chips out of those. And it was a tedious process getting them sliced up thin, especially because I don't have like a mandolin. So it's basically initially I was trying to do it with a knife, and that was working okay, but it's just hard to get it thin enough consistently. And so I ended up going back to the method that I've used before for making potato chips, which is using a cheese slicer that has the preset thickness. And so it's just like, okay, slice, and it's very tedious, especially when you have basically a 5-pound bag of sweet potatoes to go through. So, but I got them all sliced up, got them all fried up. They came out great. Have lots of them left, which, that was the idea, was I was just going to try it out. I mean, I think I probably won't do that again in the future with the sweet potatoes, mostly because of how much time it takes to get through all that. But I definitely will make sweet potato fries one of these times. That would be good, because I like sweet potato fries. It's very good. But yeah, I don't think there's really anything else. Oh, I did a little bit of rearranging. I did some cleaning up in the garage while I was waiting to hear back about the mower, and in addition to that, I did a little bit of putting boxes away that I've had stored. So like right over here is where I have my Nintendo. I've had my Nintendo stuff, and before I had my Wii U box, as well as my Switch OLED box, and 2 of my 3 3DS boxes up there, and then of course all the other game cases that I still have up there, all the collector's edition things. And so I got rid of all the console boxes, and so now it's just like my collector's things and my Super Nintendo Classic, and then the Game & Watch, the Zelda and Mario Game & Watches. But I finally decided to take my Xenoblade Chronicles 3 collector's edition stuff, special edition thingy, instead of having all the pieces separated and displayed. I just put all the parts of the collector's edition back in the box. So now it's just the box itself that's displayed, which I think it's off camera a little bit. Let's see here, it's right there.
Oh yeah,
that big tall one. So, but yeah, let me think here. Oh yeah, and on the other side where I had my PS4, Vita TV, and then the boxes for my PS5 controller and my Series X controller. I boxed most of those up. I was going to box up the PS4 box, but it was too long for any of the boxes I had, so I just left it up there and just consolidated things. So there's a lot less stuff up there than there was before, but it's, moving in that direction, especially because I'm sure that when it comes to like the Switch 2, when I get that, I'll probably put the box up on the Nintendo side of things. And just because I like looking at it. That's really all it comes down to. So, but yeah, that's everything for that.
Nice. Potential congratulations, I'll say.
Yeah.
I hope that you hear some good news regarding, everything, especially with, if the pay matches the responsibilities. So I'll definitely be praying for that. Praying that tomorrow you hear something good. But that's great to hear that they considered you, though.
Yeah, I mean, they've basically been kind of prepping me for the role potentially anyway, and I've already met all the qualifications to move up to the next level with the career pathing stuff that they had set up. So it was just a matter of them having a good reason to be able to offer me that. And since the other guy's moving on, it's like, well, it's the perfect opportunity. It's a lot easier for them to just put me in that role than to bring in someone completely new. But sometimes these companies, any company really, just they do things that don't make sense. So as far as I'm concerned, until I actually have the official offer and it's signed, it's not official. So we'll see what happens.
Indeed.
But this is a video game podcast, of course. So what have you been playing this week?
All right. So, I mean, obviously, as I mentioned before, and of course, no clips for this one. I played some Stardew with my niece and nephew. Did some stuff there. We finally started making some money again. That's definitely something that we struggled with, and I
prevented not spending money on booze and ice cream.
Yeah, I prevented that. In fact, the same thing almost happens again. My nephew went into the saloon, and I was like, "Hey," I was just paying attention, doing my own business thing. And I was like, "All right, step away from the bar right now. Do not talk to the guy working
away from the bar."
Yeah. First off, you're too young for that anyway. but we also don't need spending any more money. So I saved him at that point, and eventually actually we did save enough money that we were able to finally get a chicken coop. So we can start getting some chickens, get some eggs, and start making money off those eggs. You know, make some mayonnaise, because that mayonnaise is a pretty good sustainable source of revenue. So you know, once we get a couple chickens in there, get that going, and we can make some more money, and eventually stop being stop having less than $1,000, you know, yeah, even less than that. So yeah, we're hopefully gonna, you know, start just generating money instead of losing money. But primarily though, I've been playing Clear Obscure Expedition 33, and I finally got through Act 1, and I'm not gonna say anything because of spoilers, but it really just matched everything I felt at the end of the prologue. It's just that good. And I mean, even before getting to that point, you know, when you first meet Eskia, I thought, this guy just reminds me of Solaire so much. He's just a very laid-back character, and he's just so... He's philosophical, but he's also humorous at the same time. And I mean, the quarrel he has with his neighbor, I thought that was very hilarious. Yeah, and the fact that, you know, at first when you meet him, he says, "Oh, I need you to go find my rock," and then, you know, they ask, "Oh, let me guess, we have to go fight some Nevrons and go in some cavern." He said, "Oh no, it's just next door." And I'm just, it can't be that simple, right? And it really was just that simple. So I think he's a really great addition to the party, and having him being a way of traveling is just so wonderful, because it makes backtracking so much easier because of the fact that he's faster than you.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's definitely been great, especially when there were times where there's the one Nevron you can fight, or you can help, where you have to bring him the flesh of, I can't remember what it's called, but one of those larger Nevrons that can swallow you. Yeah, and because I beat the first one, that's in Flying Waters, I realized, oh, I should not have fought that one at that time, because I could have saved that one for the for that side quest. But then later I realized, oh, there's another one I can face. So fortunately,
you didn't have to. You could have just used the stuff that you already had.
Oh, I already had one. Oh,
well,
wow.
Because when you beat the Borgion or whatever it is, Buongiorno, because when I went into that thing, it just, I mean, the one that I'd already beaten, I already had the flesh or whatever that I needed.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I thought that it was,
you know,
okay.
Well,
that's good then, because I thought to myself, oh man, I missed it, and so I went around and I saw there was one somewhere where you, after you get Eskia, and then there's one in an area, and I got that one. So then I was like, all right, now I can go back and get it. But that was good. Let's see, what other notes did I have about this. Oh yeah, so Mael, she's been carrying the party so much. I mean, I already mentioned before how well she performed, but I mean, at times I'm wondering, how does her back not hurt from just like carrying the entire group? Because there were several times where, or at least a couple different fights where I thought, okay, you know, I hope things go well here, and then she deals damage, and I'm thinking to myself, you really just dealt that much damage. That much health, with that health bar just shrunk substantially with just one attack. And I mean, especially when you set her up with a mark from Gustav, it really makes me wonder, if the cap was not there right now, how much damage she would have dealt. Because I'm just saying 9, and so I'm just like, oh, I know eventually you're able to remove that cap, but I'm just like, how much damage have you actually been doing this entire time? I'm just like, okay, yeah. I feel vindicated, just like giving you essentially nothing but strength boosts and luck boosts, just so you can deal maximum damage and deal mostly or deal a lot of criticals because that's just been very helpful. And I mean, in the boss fight, the chromatic hexglyph boss fight. Now during this fight, unfortunately, I was not aware of the fact that I completely forgot she has an ability that removes the shields, and I forgot I had that equipped.
Yeah.
So I had to actually start over again
Yeah.
because I died. But eventually, it got to the point where she was the last member standing, and I was able to keep dodging and everything, and I kept dealing damage. But the problem was, because of the shields, I just could not pull it off fast enough to like damage that crystal, which, you know, enables the boss to like deal extra or deal more attacks per turn. And so so like it was frustrating, but I was just like, you're still alive. And it's just I mean, granted, if I had dodged the other attacks for the other members, you know, I would have done much better. But I'm just like, yeah, you're doing great, keep doing what you're doing. Oh, and then the last thing that I'll say is that I went to Crushing Cavern. In fact, I was doing this right before getting set for the podcast, and I was not expecting the boss there. Well, I was not expecting the boss fight to be the way it was, with the giant sapling, and I eventually was like, all right, I think I can possibly get this to work within 6 turns. And every time I messed up, I was like, I've got to start over again, because, you know, if you mess up once in this boss fight, unless you're high enough, you have a high enough level, it's gonna be hard to you know, recover from one mistake. So I kept resetting the boss fight every time I messed up. Either I got hit, or if like something like that, or if I missed, or if I dodged instead of parrying, because I need to deal that extra damage. And eventually I actually beat the boss fight, and I really wanted to use that boss fight to count towards the professional achievement. And unfortunately, it didn't seem to work that way, even though I didn't take any damage at all, which was kind of weird to me, because that is a boss fight, isn't it? That does count as being a boss fight.
I mean, it
and not
should.
Just, which is
Are
weird.
you completely positive you didn't take any damage? Because I know there have been times where I thought I didn't take any damage, and I realized that I just forgot that I got hit.
I'm fairly certain, because because when you do take damage, you're inflicted with exhaust, and I never was inflicted, or at least when I got it right. I'll say that, because I needed to not have that status effect, just so I can make sure I always get AP every turn.
Yeah.
So I know I got that right. So I'm not certain why that didn't count. I mean, I could technically, I think, go through one of the previous saves and see if, like, you know, I could load that up again and try to fight it. But
I wouldn't worry about it. You'll have plenty of opportunities to get that achievement. I mean, even if nothing else, like if you want to do it without just basically taking out the boss in a single turn, which later in the game is very doable, you can, you know, just go with the chromatic bouche clear, like I talked about last week, because he was a piece of cake. Just do that. But when you get late in the game, you will probably find it very, very easy to to complete a boss in a single turn, with the right setup anyway. So
yeah. So I think that's actually everything that I have from my notes there. That was also the only other game that I played.
Sweet. All right, well, a couple things. First of all, let's see here. Well, with you know, definitely with Mael, of course, having that ability that removes the shields, that's huge. It makes a huge difference throughout the majority of the game. I utilize that a lot. It's just immensely helpful. But what else was I going to say? Well, one thing is, I got to know. So, of course, my intro last week for you about how you felt when Gustav had to give the password to SKA's domain. What was your reaction to that?
Oh my goodness, that I
Did you feel his pain?
I felt I did feel his pain. I saw that, I was like, oh, I know how you feel, Gustav. Like I would feel the same way saying that, and then especially when he's trying
Exactly.
to go back and explain everything, and
Yeah.
yeah,
He's just
yeah.
apologizing constantly and just like, get out of my way. It was fantastic. I love that so much. That's like my favorite scene in all of Act 1. Probably the entire game, honestly. But yeah, it's just like, yep, I feel that pain. I feel your pain, Gustav. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
one last thing I also forgot to mention is that I did install the Clear Obscure
Oh, good.
fix, and I really appreciate the fact that it removes the frame rate cap. It looks so
Yes.
much better. The cutscenes look
Yes.
so much better without that 30
Yes.
FPS cap.
100%.
And additionally, I use the feature that removes the extra sharpening, and I think it makes the hair, or at least the shadows from the hair, look much better on the characters, and not look as pixelated when you're zoomed in on their faces. So I also appreciate that aspect as well from the fix.
Very cool. All right, so as for what I've been playing, first of all, just get it out of the way. I played some more Minecraft Dungeons with the kids. I did that, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday because we didn't have. I mean, Sunday I was just tired from the drive and everything, and Monday I ended up doing so much that I just was exhausted at the end of the day, and I decided not to play really much of anything. Um, so yeah, then just waited until yesterday and worked on another level with the kids. We were able to beat the Enderman, find and beat the Enderman in the level. There's actually 2 of them there, but unfortunately we didn't finish the level, so it didn't count, which stunk. So it is what it is. But then the thing that I played probably the most was Expedition 33, of course, and I am completely finished with it. I not only did I beat all of the remaining bosses, including the super boss whose footage is being played right now, but I also got all the rest of the achievements. So something I want to talk about with this super boss, because he's crazy to say the least. So I guess I should back up. There was one boss I fought before him that's supposed to be the second most difficult boss in the game, and I had hyped myself up on how difficult this boss was going to be. So when I got to the boss, I was just like, okay, I'm expecting this is going to be a long fight. It's going to be something that's going to take me multiple attempts, even with my crazy Mael build. And I finished her in one turn. So it was kind of underwhelming from that standpoint, but I just laughed about it because I was so prepared for it to be a really hard fight. And so then I decided, okay, well, I already have fairly easy access to this super boss, the most difficult boss in the entire game. And so I'm going to attempt to beat him. Just try again now, even though I was like in the 70s, I think was around my character levels. 70s or 80s, somewhere around there. And I mean, as you'll see this footage that you'll see here is from, it took me a number of attempts before I beat him. But, so his first phase, I could very easily finish it in one turn. But his second phase, he's much harder. So like, if you don't take him out in a single, like if you knock off 75% of his health bar, which I did, and that was having done like 52 million damage in a single hit. I knocked off like 3/4 of his health bar, and if you don't do that, then sorry, let me back up. If you don't take him out in one hit, if you get him down like 75% of the way, 66%, whatever it was, then once he gets his turn, he removes everyone in your party from the map. So you can't use the people, your primary party anymore. So your only option is to use your secondary characters. Now, of course, Mael is in my primary party. She is my major damage dealer. My secondary party, I mean, they can do some damage, but there was just like no way I was going to be able to get through him without that. So, numerous times. I mean, I probably 5 to 10 times I tried to beat this guy. First phase, no problem. Second phase, at best, I was getting to doing 66 to 75% of his health bar, and then he would remove my party from the fight, and so then I would have to bring in my backup party if I wanted to attempt that. Which half the time I was just like, no, I already know I'm not going to be able to beat him with them, so I'll just give up and start over. So ultimately what I ended up having to do was I took advantage of the roulette picto, which I've had kind of like mixed results with in the past, because it's the way it's set up is you either do 50% damage or you do 200% damage. It's one or the other. And so I finally decided to do that and was able to take him out in a single turn from that, dealing over 68 million damage in a single hit. It was like 68,092,574 or something like that. The number will show up on screen again, and it's already played through the fight several times. And this guy has like the attacks he does are crazy in terms of the number of hits back to back to back to back. Like it'd be like da 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 da, and it's like 10 to 15 hits in a single attack, and it's crazy. And I've seen people who have parried every single one of his attacks, and like it's impressive when people can do that. I'm sure if I spent a lot of time on it, I could eventually get it, but I knew that I didn't want to spend that much time on it. I mean, like the first person I saw do it is a content creator named Glad, a GLADD, and he's done lots of like Destiny content creation, and he would like solo raids that were never meant to be soloed, or in some rare cases, like he had to have two people because it was impossible with only one person. But like, this is the kind of guy that's like absurdly skilled as a gamer, and I'm nowhere near that level. So I just decided, you know what? I have spent all this time in this game. I've beaten lots of bosses, completely without, taking advantage of all the power stacking and everything, because like there's no glitches involved in doing this. It's just a matter of utilizing the systems that the game has, and the game is designed for that. I mean, they give these bosses ridiculous health bars with the idea you're going to take advantage of all these different abilities you have and all these different pictos and luminas in order to deal insane damage. And I mean, I don't know exactly how much health this super boss has, but the fact that 52 million damage that I had done to him previously was not enough to take him out says that it's a lot. So, 68 million damage is what it took to take him out in a single turn. I mean, like, I did limited damage with my other two party members beforehand. Just, one was Seal giving me some buffs, and then using an ability that makes it so that another party member's damage is doubled the next turn. So do the buffs for everybody, double Miles' damage, and then use her ability Stendhal, which already does an insane amount of damage, and that on top of that having the the roulette Lumina equipped, and just happening to get the roll of the 200% damage was enough to go ahead and more or less one shot. I mean, technically it was like, I think he got hit 5 times total that round, because it was like 4 times. Actually, no. I think it was like six times total from Monaco, and then an additional. And I guess you probably don't have Monaco yet, but you'll get him in a little while. I mean, he's been shown off since early trailers. Anyway, and then the final one hit from Mayo. So, but yeah. Yeah, the systems in this thing are broken, but in a very good way. I mean, in some ways it felt kind of unsatisfying to take them out so easily, because it feels like cheating, even though it's not cheating, because it's not like I'm like exploiting the game or anything. It's just, I'm utilizing what the game enables me to do, and it's not, I don't have to glitch anything. It's just purely utilizing the systems that are present. And with all the time I put in, with all the time I spent fighting, other bosses, learning to parry properly and everything else, it just felt good to deal with these super bosses in a much, much easier way. So I did a bunch of that stuff, primarily on my laptop, and then when I was just doing a lot of the cleanup, it was basically doing it about half on the Steam Deck, and then the other half between my laptop and desktop. When we were on our way to Louisiana and I was done doing my part of the driving, I was basically just playing on the Steam Deck, because since I wasn't really focused too much on parrying at that point, it really wasn't a problem for me to just play with what I had to work with, and worked fine, and was better than having the laptop on my lap in the car, because while yes, I can plug it in the car, it's better to just have this nice little handheld device and make it easy. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else really to say about this game other than what I've already said. I mean, it's an amazing game, and it's without question my game of the year. It's possible that could change in the future, but as of right now, I don't see that changing. And we'll, wait and see what else comes up this year, whether or not anything will match it, but I don't think anything will. So, but when I finished this, I, of course, initially was just kind of like, okay, I have no idea what I want to play now, or at least I'm just not quite sure. I just know I want to play something completely different. So I ended up installing several games to the Steam Deck. Not really sure what exactly I wanted to play, so I kind of just like went through and tried a few different things. Oh, although actually before I installed those games to the Steam Deck, I went ahead and booted up the Messenger again on my desktop, because I realized, the main reason why I had stopped playing that was because there was that special cave that if you get through the cave completely in the dark, you get an achievement for it, and I was just like, I want to get that achievement, even though it's not necessary. But the problem is that once you light up the cave, you can't go back. And so it occurred to me, I can just back up my save, and then I can come back and do that achievement later on, and I can just proceed in the game. So I played for a bit. I think I played for probably like 20-30 minutes. I couldn't quite remember all where I needed to go, and so I ended up just not playing very long. But I mean, it's still an amazing game. I just wasn't really like feeling it, I guess. So, but the games I installed on my Steam Deck, one of the first things I tried out was Abe's Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, the new and tasty version. So it's the remake that they did a number of years ago. I had never played the original back when it was on PlayStation and then on PC. And I tried the game out on Vita some years ago when it was like a free PlayStation Plus game. But I just never got very far into it. And so, but since I got like, I think it was all of the games for like $2 on Fanatical sometime last year. And so I decided I would go ahead and try this out. And I played for a bit, but I just got stuck. And I just didn't really feel like trying to figure out how to proceed, so I ended up just not playing very long. I think I played for like 15, 20 minutes. I do think this is the kind of game that I will really enjoy. It was just that like there's basically it's kind of like you're solving a puzzle more or less, but you have enemies that can shoot you, and of course you have no way to defend yourself, so if you get shot, you pretty much die. And I couldn't quite figure out how to get past some enemies pretty early on in the game, and so rather than taking the time to look it up, I just decided, okay, I'm just going to play something else. I'll try this game again some other time. I'll look up how to get past those enemies, and then I'll probably be interested and play it a lot more. But the next game that I tried out is a puzzle game called Hue, which I know you have. And I played actually quite a lot. I'm about, I want to say 2/3 to 3/4 the way through. Of course, that's not having grabbed all of the collectibles. There's still quite a few of them that I need to get, but it's see, right now I am at the point where you are. Well, actually, I guess I should ask, how far did you get into Hue?
I finished it completely.
Okay. All right, so right now I'm at the point where I'm climbing the mountain to get to the university. So I'm pretty far in the game, minus not having all the collectibles. And I was definitely digging it a lot. Like I was really getting into it, but I kind of just got to a point once I got to that point, I was just kind of like, I kind of feel like just moving on for now. And it's not because I don't want to play more. It was just because I got tired of backtracking through the levels and trying to find the collectibles, and redoing the puzzles and everything was kind of annoying. So I ultimately just decided to stop playing it for a bit. But what I ended up playing, and actually have played quite a bit, I don't think I put as much time into this as I did with Hue, but Darksiders War Mastered Edition. So, I had said beginning of this year that one of my goals for this year was to finally give the Darksiders series a shot. And, of course, the first Darksiders is very heavily inspired by the old God of War games, which I've never really gotten much into, but I wanted to finally give it a shot. And I got, well past the point where I had stopped when I originally tried this game back in like 2013 or 2014, something like that, for the original version before they, gave me the remaster for free. And I just, I've been playing it on Steam Deck, and as of right now, the point where I just beat like the first real boss. At least what I count as the first real boss, because there's like one that you have in the prologue that you fight, and then after that you have like a bunch of smaller bosses, but the first real like proper boss is Tiamat, and I just fought and beat her. I think that was during my lunch break today. I think that's right. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I've been digging it. It's a pretty cool game. It took some fiddling to get it to a consistent frame rate, and basically I've been able to get pretty close to a locked 60. I probably could modify the settings a little bit more and make it even better, because like I'm just running it like a mix of medium and high and stuff. I've just been kind of messing around with different options, but yeah, as an overall thing, like I do like it. The only thing that honestly really irritates me is that there's no sprint button, and it's just like you have a dash and that's it. But the dash, just puts you a short distance, which is, so it's like, okay, I mean, it works, but I would much rather actually have a real dodge button. I mean, like have a real, well, not necessarily have a real dodge, but have a real sprint, so that it's a little bit easier to get away from enemies and all that. But I'm slowly working my way through it. I mean, like, I don't know if it's going to be something that I'm sticking with, but at least right now, I've been playing it a fair amount and I've been enjoying myself. But like I said, as I said in my intro, I'm I haven't quite been able to scratch the itch exactly of what I'm looking for. This is probably as close as I've gotten so far to scratching the itch, but a lot of it is just I'm not quite sure. It's just the impact that Expedition 33 left. Like just the way that it affected me mentally. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like it's like, oh, this is somehow like life changing or anything like that, but just more. It left such an impression on me to where I'm not finding any game at the moment that's grabbing me in quite the same way. And so I'm just kind of messing around with different things. And I think, at least for now, it seems like Darksiders is probably going to be the game I play for the time being. And we'll see if anything changes on that front. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, one thing I will mention just briefly, I didn't record any footage because I literally just installed it and started it up just to get a screenshot. And that was Horizon Forbidden West. I reinstalled that on my laptop and posed / used photo mode in order to get the picture that I needed to create the thumbnail for last week's episode. and that's literally all I did in the game, just because I knew that since the game actually has a photo mode, that was going to be way easier than trying to find the specific image that I was looking for in order to be able to create the thumbnail that I wanted to create. So that's everything.
Okay. So regarding Darksiders, did you have to do any sort of special setting or configuration or any type of Proton thing for the game? Because I heard that the game does not, or at least from what I've heard, does not out of the box run the cutscenes for that game.
Yes. Okay, so that was one thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, I had that issue. Like, it was bizarre issues with the cutscenes. It was audio sync was off, or like it wouldn't have all of the audio there. It was just bizarre. I didn't fully test this at the time when I was going through all those cutscenes, and then also the game would like crash every once in a while, which is really annoying. But Proton 9.0.4 seems to have fixed the problem. I read that was one that people had tried using, and since I've been running it with that, I haven't had any problems.
Okay, yeah, because that Darksiders is definitely a game I've wanted to try out, especially playing it on the Steam Deck, and I've just heard that the game works, but the cutscenes are just like the Achilles heel for that game in particular. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, you've played that? I was like, so let me know what you did with that. So I'll definitely make a note of that 9.04, so that way I can try that out later. Yeah, I'm definitely glad that or at least you seem to be enjoying it so far. From what I've also heard, I don't know at what point you get this, but from what I've heard, you do get your horse, and that should be a way to like help you, move around faster. That would make
sense. That would make sense.
And I think there's even like an achievement for it, like for riding around a certain distance with it. So, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know at what point you get it, but that could definitely help you with traversing areas and stuff. Yeah, and I don't remember how far I got into it, but I did enjoy playing it when I did, which was on the Wii U originally. And I probably would have kept going until I beat the game, but I think the copy I bought had a scratch note or something, because it kept freezing at the same point every time in one of the levels, and I was just like, I give up. Someone clearly did not take care of this disc well enough before I bought it, so I'll just stop now. But yeah, it's definitely a pretty decent game. Like you said, copies or it's inspired by the older God of War games, and also kind of has some puzzle like elements that you would see in like a Zelda game.
Well, I mean, the God of War games have those kind of puzzles too. At least from what I played of the first one, it was very, very much the same kind of puzzles. It's like, this feels a lot like the old God of War games from what I played of both.
Yeah. So I think maybe I'll try. I might try that later on. Did you try playing it on your like, just for giggles to see like your performance, like how you on your computer or your
No,
desk
I
or
mean,
your
like,
laptop?
I know that I would be able to max everything out. I'm pretty sure I was maxing everything out when I was playing on my laptop with the original version, and that was 15 years ago. So, well, no, I guess it wasn't 15 years ago because I got the game in like 2012, I think. But the laptop is 15 years old, and I was maxing it out at the time. Granted, that was 900p for the resolution and everything, but um, obviously my desktop is significantly more powerful. Could easily do 240 frames per second with everything maxed out at 1440p. But maybe at some point I'll just install it on the laptop and the desktop just for testing sake. Maybe. I may not, because like that's the kind of game I'd rather play on a handheld anyway. Yeah.
Comment I have for Hugh. I can't remember because it's been such a long time. But I'm trying to remember if you need to, and I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I think maybe if you backtrack to go get collectible in a particular level, if you clear that particular room, you can exit out of the level,
Right.
and you will
can,
still keep it. Oh, okay.
But the problem is that you still have to get through any rooms before it in order to get to that room.
Okay. Then,
so you still have to redo all the puzzles, and it's just like, I don't like that. That's very annoying. Yeah. If I didn't have to redo it, it wouldn't be such a big deal. And also because I'm just, going through blindly. I'm not using guides to help me find the stuff. And I looked it up to see, okay, is there like a secret ending if you get all the collectibles? And it's like, no, just an achievement. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I think there's only 13 achievements in the game, and I have 10 of them already. And 2 of them are basically just for finishing the story. So, it's like, I mean, I might, because like I like getting collectibles, but because of how tedious it is redoing the puzzles every time, I'm not sure if I'll bother. But I do. I mean, I like the game otherwise. Like, 90 frames per second locked on the Steam Deck. Looks great on the OLED screen. Music is great. I mean, I like the puzzles. It's just I don't really want to have to redo them just to get back to the stuff I missed. That's just annoying.
Very, very understandable there. Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing else. I guess I could say that would be good advice, since you would still have to go backtrack through the previous rooms. So yeah, I guess we'll see.
One thing I will say, just as a quick side note, whenever you get to this point, because it's going to be quite a while since you're still in just Act 2, but when you get to Act 3 and you get to the point where you're trying to, well, if you decide to grind up to 99 for the achievement, there is a spot that it's probably the most efficient spot I found, where you basically have 2 different sets of enemies that you can face, and you can, I mean, with the right setup, you can pretty easily get through those sets of enemies, within a turn or 2 for each set, and combine between those 2, you get around like 4.5 million experience. I mean, at that point in the game, it doesn't go as far, but it's definitely the most efficient, grinding area that I found. And it was way more, because like initially I was going through that entire area, and I'm not going to say what it is because it's kind of spoilery, but initially I was going through all of that area and fighting all the different enemies in the area. And yeah, that adds up. But the thing is that it also takes a while to do all of the wandering through to get all those different groups of enemies. And there's just like platforming and whatnot, to where it ends up being much more efficient to just, you have like this right near the starting area, you go off to the side, grapple up, there's one set of enemies, take those out, come back, there's another set of enemies right near the entrance, you fight those, and then go up to the flag, respawn the enemies, and rinse and repeat until you get leveled up. And that was how I got from like 95 to 99. That was the easiest way to do it. So yeah. But anyway, what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I was just saying. I think those were all the notes I had from your games.
All right. Good stuff. So let's get into our topics for tonight. One of the first things that I would really like to discuss, because I'm definitely curious about your thoughts on this. So Liza P, with its DLC that's coming out, is adding different difficulty modes. It's adding 2 more difficulty modes, and I guess I better pull up the notes on what those were called specifically. Give me just 1 second here. So it's introducing the Butterfly's Guidance and Awakened Puppet. And the default difficulty level is now Legendary Stalker. So basically, that is the normal, well, the Souls level difficulty, and then Butterfly's Guidance, I'm guessing that's baby mode, and Awakened Puppet is probably like what would be considered normal difficulty for other people. But regardless, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm really mixed about this, to be honest. I mean, on one hand, I can kind of appreciate I appreciate the fact that this happened afterwards. Man, well, the more I think about it, the more I just feel worse about it. So I guess, all right. So I really do not like. I mean, I don't appreciate. Okay, I don't like the fact that there's an easier mode in there. Just because the fact that, you know, it's a Souls-like, and Souls-likes are known for their difficulty, and that's sort of like the main idea behind a Souls-like is the fact that it has a challenging difficulty that you have to overcome through skill or some tactics to get through. Otherwise, you're really just playing an action adventure game, or action RPG at that point if it's going to be easier. So it's like, what's the point of removing the bites from the game if you're not going to enjoy the genre for what it is? I mean, like I said, I appreciate the fact that happened afterwards, because I mean, it's not like it would have messed with the intended difficulty when the game launched or released. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, while also they added the more difficult difficulty setting, on the other hand, I'm sort of at the other end of the spectrum where I'm just like, do we really need, I mean, what's the difference between...
They didn't add a more difficult difficulty setting. I mean, they have 2 easier difficulties. The original difficulty...
both of the difficulties are actually easier?
Both of the new ones are easier.
Oh,
Legendary
I thought one was easier.
Stalker is the default, which is the difficulty it is currently.
Wow.
And
okay, you know what?
Butterfly's Guidance and Awakened Puppet are easy and normal, basically.
Wow. Okay.
Or maybe Butterfly's Guidance is probably... I don't think they quite... I doubt it's as easy as a game journalist would want it to be. But I do think that it's going to be like easier mode, and then Awakened Puppet will be quote unquote easy mode. Like it would be what would be normally considered normal difficulty, but for this game is not the normal difficulty, because the normal difficulty is the hardest difficulty. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. On that case, note, I take back what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that why would we need to have like an even harder difficulty in a Souls-like game? It's just like you're starting off at New Game Plus immediately. But the fact that it's just really just two easier difficulties two easier difficulty settings is just, yeah, yeah, no. And I'm going to repeat something that we've both stated before in the past, and we'll probably repeat this again in the future. Having easier difficulties does not make something more accessible, because accessibility is about if you can actually play the game, if you're able to utilize the controls, and that's why we have the different controllers that are catered toward people with disabilities, because they might not be able to use a specific controller. And we've seen people who have disabilities who can play games that are difficult. So it's not a matter of hard equals inaccessible. It's a matter of, are the controls accessible or not? Because people who have disabilities, who have the controllers that are designed with them in mind, they can play these games. So making something easier does not mean it's more accessible. It's just easier, and you can play these games and beat them. It's just a matter of if you're willing to take the time to learn the mechanics in order to make progress and overcome the hurdles. And I mean, even going back to Dark Souls, or I think even with Demon Souls, this was probably what originally was. Miyazaki, when he designed the game, his philosophy was about a time when he was in his car, and I think he got like a flat tire or something like that, and he had to pull over to the side, and it was raining on that day. And the mentality he had was the fact that there's a difficult moment in life, and it's up to you to like overcome that hurdle to emerge victorious from that. And so that is the core idea behind a Souls-like or any type of Souls game, is the fact that you have a challenge. It's up to you to use whatever methods you can to overcome that challenge. Now, I haven't played Lies of P yet, so I don't know exactly how it is designed, mechanically speaking. I mean, of course, I know there's different stuff and different abilities, but I don't know if it's something like in a typical Dark Souls type of game where you can have your different builds and stuff, whether you like, be a pyromancer, you want to be, a warrior or something like that, or, rogue, mage, whatever have you, or if it's something more akin to Sekiro, where you have a specific build and you have to actually use those skills only. I mean, of course, you have like, other types of abilities, but primarily you have one weapon type that you use. And it's up to you to use the game's mechanics to actually get through the game and beat the game. Otherwise, you're gonna have a hard time if you don't adapt. So if Lies of P is more like a traditional Souls-like game where you can customize your build, then that's really all you need to do. Like, you can make it as easy or as difficult as you want it to be, if it's like that. But and because of that, I really feel like there's no need to have a difficulty setting at all, because I mean, there's the one joke about Dark Souls game is like, if you want easy mode, just make a I can't remember if it's a sorcerer build, and there's your easy mode right there. So it's really up to you to decide how easy you want to make the game, depending on your build. And I mean, also, of course, if you misallocate your stats, then that's also gonna make things more difficult for you. But yeah, I mean, I guess all this is saying, I really feel like this is unnecessary. And I mean, sure, the dev said, I can't remember who it said specifically, Jiwon Choi, the game director, actually, he said that a lot of it came from feedback from both, players as well as developers, or from the team's developers. And I'm like, if a lot of it came from the game devs, I'm more willing to be lenient, just because I really don't want it to be like they changed the difficulty because of the players, or not necessarily the players, but maybe people who wouldn't play a game because it's difficult, rather than, all right, we have this is like the intended way the game was meant to be played, the intended difficulty, and you know, we're only changing it for the people who might not even really be interested in the first place. So if the devs wanted to change it, then I'm more accepting of that change. But at the same time, I'm just like, it's it's going against like the core idea of a Souls like, and it's like, yeah. And I mean, I will be fair. To be fair though, this isn't necessarily the first time it's happened. Like Mandragora, the game that I've played a few weeks ago and mentioned before, that game actually has a difficulty setting, I believe. Now I didn't play it on. I think I might have played it on. I think I'm playing it on the harder difficulty, or at least the one that's more Souls like, akin to a Souls like. But that one I know has a difficulty setting. So I mean, technically it can be done, but I'm just like, if you're gonna be a Souls like, be a Souls like. Don't try to remove the bite just to appeal to a larger audience. But that's all I've got to say before I start repeating myself.
I'm very much mixed on this. If it was actually like a From Software game where they were adding different difficulty modes, then I would very much be 100% against it, because it's just like, or well, I should say, a From Software game that's intended to be a Souls-like, because that's what the games are. That's what they're supposed to be. Um, I have less of an issue when developers do it from the get-go, like that's just the way they've designed the game. Um, I'm not a fan of them adding this after the fact. I mean, like, yes, it doesn't prevent those of us who want the harder difficulty from playing it at the harder difficulty. Like, I get that. But it does change the experience. You're not getting the same experience when you play it on a lower difficulty than if you're playing it on the normal difficulty, the Souls-like difficulty. And I think that it gives people kind of like a false sense of, I like this type of game. Like if a person plays this on the baby difficulty, we'll just say it's baby difficulty, even though it's probably more difficult than that, and they end up really enjoying it, but then they try out another Souls-like game, or an actual Souls game, and they find, oh, there is that option doesn't exist, and they're going to complain about it. And I want people to, like, if you're going to try out this genre, you have to be prepared for the idea you're going to die a lot. That's okay. You just keep trying, and that's how you get better at this kind of thing. Um I don't know. It's one of those things where it's really hard for me to, like, I don't want it to be like, oh, elitism kind of thing, because that's not the case at all. Like, I'm not good at these games by any stretch. I know that I'm not. But I enjoy them because of the fact that I've been able to work at it and overcome the challenges. And I've thoroughly enjoyed them as a result. Like, I loved Dark Souls Remastered. It's cracked my top 5 games of all time. I enjoyed Dark Souls 3 a lot. I enjoyed Dark Souls, what I played of Dark Souls 2, though I still have quite a bit left to go. Um, what I played of Neo, I really enjoyed, apart from that really stupid boss that got me stuck. Um, and then there's other situations like with Jedi Fallen Order, where it's technically a Souls-like, but I think it's really more Metroidvania with Souls-like elements, and that one has low difficulties, but that's how it was designed from the get-go. Um, I mean, it still has Souls elements to it. That one I don't take as much of an issue with, um, even though I do think that. Well, I was going to say that I think that it should just have a default difficulty, like a higher difficulty. But at the same time, for a game like that, like, I can understand why, because it's a Star Wars game, that they would have, the lower difficulty options. And I mean, I only played that one on normal, and definitely was nowhere near as hard as the other Souls games I played. Um, but I don't know. It's just I have a hard time with this. Now, I played the demo, well, most of the demo of Lies of P, and this was before I was like really into Souls likes. So I played up until the boss of the demo. I didn't beat the boss. I'm sure if I went back now, I could probably handle it now that I'm much more used to all that kind of thing. But I know that you could do different types of weapons, and I think there's like a few different stats you can upgrade. It was nowhere near as expansive as what you have in Dark Souls, but there was still quite a bit you could do from that standpoint. And all I really remember specifically about it was, of course, it has the traditional Souls-like thing where you kill enemies, and then if you die, they all respawn, and you have to go pick up your souls. I can't remember if it's picking it up like in Dark Souls or if it's hitting the enemy that has them, like in some other games, like Bloodborne and whatnot. And that you have to sharpen your weapon every once in a while to restore some of its power. Oh, that reminds me. I need to go back for just one quick second and just mention this because I forgot to mention it earlier. Strength is actually not as helpful of a stat in Expedition 33 as you would think. It's actually better to choose to rank up your stats that scale with your weapon, and then you'll hit harder.
Okay.
But you can use the recoats to redo your stats, and you'll get tons of those throughout the game. So anytime you want to redo your stats, you can do that. Just as an FYI.
Okay. Yeah.
I did the same thing early on, and then I found out, it's actually better to have, like, especially speed is always really helpful because then you get more turns and so forth. But anyway, going back to this Lies of P thing, though, like I said, I'm super mixed on this. I think it would be better if they didn't do these other difficulty options because, yes, they want more people to play the game, and that's great. But the kind of people who are not willing to try and work on, getting better enough to actually be able to play this. And I'm not saying, get good, even though that's what it sounds like. I mean, I'm saying you have to work at it in order to get better at the game. I'm not saying get good and then come back to it. I'm saying come into the game expecting to die a lot and learn from your mistakes so that you can get better over time. And then even if you, like me, are never particularly skilled at the game, you can still enjoy it for what it is, and then you'll appreciate the genre that much more, and you'll understand why it is that we don't want these lower difficulties in Souls-likes. I don't know if there's anything more I can say, though, so I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah, that's very well said. And I mean, I guess one more thing, last thing I'll add is the fact that you don't necessarily have to. If a game like this isn't appealing to you because of the difficulty, that's perfectly fine. But just accept that it's not going to be a genre for you. I mean, like, not every genre is for everyone. I mean, I don't play sports games because they really just don't appeal to me. You
don't want to have a Souls-like sports game. It's like, I'm not telling you to put Souls-like elements in my sports games or to make my sports game into a Metroidvania.
Yeah, if you're like playing baseball and the pitcher throws the ball, you actually miss and it hits you, and then goes, you died after that. But yeah, I mean, like, some genres just won't be for anyone. I mean, not for anyone, but like, it's not gonna be for everyone. Not everyone's going to enjoy a particular genre. Some people like other genres more than other. Some really just don't care for a particular one at all. And I mean, like I said, sports genres, I really don't care for at all. So like I'm not gonna go and say, oh, if you really want to cater to me, you should have dragons just appear in this basketball game. If you do that, then I'll be interested in it. I mean, on occasion, something interesting might be appealing. Like I think the Mario baseball game from the GameCube, that one actually kind of appealed to me, because it was kind of different in a sense. But I mean, like, I'm not going to expect every sports game just to like be different from what regularly is. So that's fine. And in the same way, don't expect a Souls-like to be the same as any other action RPG. If you like action RPGs, there are plenty of action RPGs out there, and you can definitely go and find some. I mean, we could, even name some of our favorites. But if you aren't prepared, as like you said, for the harder difficulties from a Souls-likes, then they're just not for you. And simple as that, really.
Yep. Agreed. All right. You want to talk about Nintendo with this Switch 2 OLED?
Sure. Now, we've mentioned this here and there, saying like we feel like this is coming, and it definitely seems like this will be coming. So this is coming from Insider Gaming, and according to reports that have been mentioned, Nintendo is working with Samsung to develop, or they have been working together for the Nintendo Switch 2. But also, Samsung is working on the processors behind an OLED version of the console. Let me see, and this is also something, quote from Bloomberg. Nintendo company has turned to Samsung Electronics company to make the main chips for the Switch 2, move that may help the Japanese company ramp up production of the gaming console enough to sell a higher than projected 20 million units by March 2026. And then further down, it says the Korean company has also pushed for OLED panels to be used when Nintendo refreshes the Switch 2 in the future, which is what someone else has said. And there's nothing else really that is mentioned here about this. So what are your thoughts about this, Mr. OLED?
Well, as the resident OLED fanatic, I mean, like, I knew this was going to happen. I'm just... It's honestly making me just think twice about whether or not I actually want to stick with still getting the Switch 2 at launch. I mean, because it's like, I know this is going to happen eventually. It's obvious. There's no question that it's going to happen. The part that I have a hard time with, more than anything, is the fact that I basically can't play my Switch anymore because my kids are playing it all the time. And it's like I'm having a hard time deciding on this, because right now I still have the pre-order active. And I mean, I'm leaning more in the direction of just, okay, I'm going to stick with my pre-order. I'll, enjoy what it has to offer. I mean, at least it has HDR, so that helps a lot to make up for the lack of an OLED screen. And I know that more likely than not, when the OLED comes around, I will probably end up getting one. But what I'm kind of hoping is that it will be like the OLED comes at the same time that the next Animal Crossing game comes, so that way I'll have a better excuse, because I know my wife is going to want to play Animal Crossing. And so then she can take the original Switch 2 and I can get the OLED. Or, something to that effect. And I've also, something that I've realized is, like, I've been playing games quite a lot on my laptop, and yeah, it doesn't have the OLED screen, so there's that, but it hasn't really bothered me. I mean, I like the OLED better, and there have been a couple times where I've actually connected my laptop to my my OLED monitor for playing games, and of course, then the games look even better. But yeah, as of right now, I'm still sticking with my pre-order. I mean, it's a couple weeks away before that comes out. And, I mean, I'm, looking forward to actually getting to check it out. Just hoping to God that they actually do some performance improvements for stuff like Xenoblade Chronicles X. But even if they don't, like I know right now the free story DLC for Sea of Stars just came out, and I've heard good things about that. And it's like, well, that may end up being the first thing I play, even though of course it'll be disappointing not playing on the OLED screen. But I can't. I think if I really want the OLED, I can always connect it to my monitor. And I don't know. I'm so mixed on this. I mean, just because of where I am and the fact that I basically can't play my Switch anymore without stealing it from my kids. It's that's the one thing that's keeping me from just straight up canceling my pre-order and just waiting for the OLED version. But there's that. I guess I don't really have any other thoughts on it other than the fact that I hope that it takes a couple years before they do this, that I won't feel like I'm just turning around and buying another Switch, that quickly. I mean, at least this time I'm definitely not going to I'm not going to do what I did last. I mean, if they do like a V2 of the Switch 2 before they do an OLED, I'm not getting the V2 this time. I'll just be like, if they do the same thing, it's like, oh, Animal Crossing comes out, I'll just be like, okay, wife, you can use my Switch, you can use my Switch 2 and play your game, and I'll play other stuff in the meantime. Because it's like, yeah, I'll probably play the new Animal Crossing when that comes, but I'm not desperate enough to play it to get another transitionary Switch 2. I'll just, wait for the OLED for getting a second one. And maybe by some miracle, prices will go down enough by that point to where it won't hurt so much to buy a second one, rather than it just increasing in price, which is just as likely, if not more likely. Anyway, I'm done.
Yeah. As you said, this isn't really a surprise. We definitely believe that this would be coming if, it wasn't a thing at launch, which we thought could have happened, but, Nintendo, after the Switch 2 was revealed and shown, it was announced that, no, it's just an LCD display. So we're like, that just means they'll come down later down the road. And, definitely seems to be likely. Now, as far out, when it's going to happen, we definitely, have no clue as to when that could be. Like you said, it would really depend if Nintendo wants to do a V2 Switch 2 or not. I mean, if they don't do a V2, then I think an OLED is definitely what's going to happen next. Out of curiosity, do you remember how long it was between Switch 1 and the V2 version?
I want to say it was like 2 years, maybe. I mean, all I know for sure is that I picked up the V2 right before Animal Crossing came out, which was in 2020. And that was the only reason I got the V2, was because of the fact that I knew if I didn't, then I would never see my Switch again. That my wife would be playing it so much that I wouldn't be able to play it. So I got the V2. I took the V2. She took the old one. And then when I decided I wanted to grab the OLED, which was about a year after it came out, then I sold the V2 to my brother-in-law and then bought the OLED with what I got from that, plus the amount extra that I needed to pay for.
Okay. So I'll just guess and predict that maybe I would say 3 years then is when the Switch 2 OLED will come out. And this, of course, is assuming that there is no V2 model, like with the original Switch. And I mean, I really don't want to believe that Nintendo would do the same thing over again. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that there is no V2, that the next iteration is going to be the OLED. So if that is the case, then I will say 3 years. Because I don't think they would try to burn early adopters, slash milk early adopters by putting out a new iteration like okay, I wouldn't. I'm trying to be nice here, okay? I'm trying to be nice here and believe. I'm trying to give them a little shred of faith that they wouldn't try to do this within like a year or two. I'm really trying to be nice here. So I'm gonna say 3 years, okay? Then they'll drop it. And again, that is of course assuming that there is no version 2 that is a non-OLED, but yeah, that's just my guess. But of course we'll definitely have to wait and see. But at the end of the day, I still think this is a true thing. Like, it's just a matter of when rather than if. But yeah, that's all I've got.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think 2 would not be unexpected if it was 2 years between. But at the same time, I could also see, just based on how Nintendo is, them milking their users to do multiple iterations. Do first a V2, then a Switch 2 Lite, and then
Oh yeah.
a Switch 2 OLED, just like they did last time. And it's just, honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that it's just such an issue with me being able to play my Switch these days, and the fact that theoretically at least some games will definitely have performance improvements and all of that on the Switch 2, I honestly am not sure I would even buy one, because I think that this generation of the Switch might be my last one with Nintendo in general. I think I might just be done with Nintendo after that, regardless of whether they decide to start putting their games on PC or not, which I don't expect them to. I'm just getting tired of their nonsense. And I mean, as it stands right now, like, I don't even know what, if any, games I'm going to be buying on the Switch 2. There will probably be some situations where, particularly for comparisons, I will still buy some of the games. Just because, I see that as kind of necessary for that purpose. But it's not going to be something where, like, I want to spend that kind of money. Especially for games that are going to be $80. That's just, it's ridiculous. And, I forgot to put this in our topics, but I guess we can kind of mention it here. One of the things Nintendo's doing with their carts, I guess, is they're only giving third parties a single option for cart sizes. So they have 64 gigs and that's it. And so any developer that has like a significantly smaller game, they don't have the option of getting a cheaper cartridge. They have to get the 64 gig one. And so a lot of developers, as a result, are opting for the key cards instead, which basically just makes it easier for, for that. And I'm getting so tired of this stuff. And honestly, I think also, probably if I didn't have so many physical games on the Switch that I have yet to even play, I probably would be even less likely to get the Switch 2, because I'm tired of these shenanigans. And also, my thing is that I'm not in favor of pirating games, particularly doing it with games that on systems that are still actively supported. If I already have a way to play it, then I'd rather just play it the way that I can. It's one thing when it's like, okay, this game, you can't buy it anymore, or the only way you can buy it is spending a ridiculous amount from a scalper. which case the developers and the manufacturers don't get any money from it anyway. It's like those situations, okay, I'm okay with getting the games that way. Or for not paying for those games. But when it comes to things where I can still pay for the game, at a reasonable price, then I'm much more hesitant to do that. And yes, I could technically just, okay, I buy this game on Switch 2 and then I just play it on PC or Steam Deck, but sometimes it just ends up being more of a headache than I want to go through in order to make it worth my time. So I'm just, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a catch-22 kind of situation. Like, yeah, if I get it for Nintendo, then I feel my conscience is, if I purchase the game, my conscience is not negatively affected. But I also have to deal with the nonsense of these companies that just do what they do. So, anyway, that's all I have to say on that front. If you have any thoughts on that topic, you're welcome to share them as well.
Well, I gave a lot of flack to devs who have used game carts, but since you mentioned the fact that there is only one option, essentially, it does make more sense to me now why you have games like Bravely Default Remastered that is on a game key cart rather than just having all the data there on a single cart. And I mean, it's ridiculous considering the fact that the original Switch had at least 3, I would say 4 different options, because you had the 32 gig version, you had I think 16, and you had 8. And actually, it might have been 4 because I think there was also a 4 gig
maybe
cart as well.
I'm not sure.
So like you had multiple options to give your devs and stuff, so they could choose which one was best for them. But we only have one. It's either sufficient or it's more than you need, and it's obviously going to be more expensive than if you just had a 16 gig cart or an 8 gig cart.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous, and then you're just stuck with, okay, we're just going to use the key carts, and I mean those are we've already expressed how we feel about those things. So, but yeah, that's extra shady on Nintendo's part, just to like have that one option. I mean, sure, on their end it's like, oh, it's cheaper for us to produce these, but it's like, really, you're gonna make it harder on the publisher's end? And then in essence, like, if people don't know that, the publisher or the devs are gonna look like they're the bad guys for not, for not actually putting it all in carts, which is like, yeah, you could put it on cart, but it's like, our game is only 5 gigabytes large, and so we're buying a 64 gigabyte cart to put that game on. It's like, we don't need all that space. Like, what are we gonna do with that? It's just a waste. That's all I got, though. But thank you for bringing that up to my attention.
Yeah, one thing I'm really wondering with that is what that's going to mean for, like, limited run. Is limited run going to be... Are they going to be doing the 64 gig cartridge sizes? Or are they just going to do the key cards? Because if they're doing the key cards, then it kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, yeah, you have it on your shelf, but that's about it. And I don't know. I really hate this stuff. Like, I wish that they could just do one or the other. Like, I understand when there's games that they're just too big for the cartridge and they have to do this other option. Obviously lots of developers did that with the Switch. Of course, then there's others where it's just complete BS and it's obvious that they're just cutting costs as much as possible, even though they could easily fit all the games on a cart, like with the Metal Gear Solid HD collection or the Master Collection. There's no reason that they should have... I mean, literally all they had on that was Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2. That was all they put on the cartridge, and the rest of them, it's you put the cartridge in and then it downloads the games. It's like... Okay. But... especially when they're only 30 frames per second, which is just like even worse because there's no reason why they should be 30 on the Switch. Absolutely none when they ran at 60 on the PS3 and 360. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to reopen those wounds. But yeah. All right. Let's move on. All right, so we got some word from Hideo Kojima regarding his action espionage game, his return to the genre, following his departure from Konami and them basically just kind of screwing him over, more or less. But he says that this game, the game which is currently a PlayStation exclusive called Fizz Int, is 5 to 6 years away from being ready to go. And I mean, of course, he's currently, finishing up Death Stranding 2, which comes out in just a little over a month on PS4 or PS5 before it eventually will come to PC, even though we don't have a release date on that front. And then he's also working on a separate thing called OD, which is going to be Xbox and it's some type of Microsoft project. I think it's cloud-based primarily. But then also he's working on a Death Stranding film adaptation, which honestly, like, I'm excited about that. I want to see that. But like, I just watch all the cutscenes again and just be like, oh yeah, I watched the Death Stranding film. But anyway, no. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts? I know you're not much of a Kojima guy since you haven't played these games, but still curious.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I guess sort of going back to his kind of, I guess you could say, roots in a sense, since that's how he really struck it, was when working with Metal Gear. And I mean, has he really worked with any other franchises before Death Stranding that wasn't Metal Gear? I mean, I feel like that's primarily everything he worked with. I mean, like from the original Metal Gear, the MSX, and then,
well, I mean he did various other games. The Zone of the Enders series was Kojima.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, then, yeah. But it's definitely, it's interesting going back to sort of like, was his baby, his brainchild was Metal Gear. And so while he doesn't have the rights to the franchise, being able to do the same thing he did for those games into his own IP that he actually owns is great. I mean, I feel like a lot of the elements from a Metal Gear game will apply to here. Even if you can't necessarily do the same exact things, like, maybe there might be some things here and there he might have as Easter eggs, but he might still try to do something similar to those to the original games, which would be nice. And I mean, it definitely could be interesting to see. I mean, I'm also, it's interesting how many plans he has, all the different games that he has in mind. And I mean, considering the fact that he also mentioned one point that he has he has a drive that has all of his game ideas, so in case like he passes away, his team has ideas. He's been doing a lot of thinking. I'll put it like that. Just to have these so many projects in that he's worked on. So I can't fault him for having this many ideas and for doing what he does, because he's good at it. It's interesting though, as you said before about having a movie, Death Stranding 2, and it's like, well, you normally see a lot of people post the full cutscenes of games online and on YouTube and stuff, like say like so and so game full movie, and then it's just
right.
like, yeah, full movie is the actual movie. Which, I mean, to a degree, I'm also wondering how you would condense something like that into a full feature length film. But I mean, it'll definitely be interesting to see. Now, one thing that I was curious about let me make sure I got that right though in the article. Oh yeah, so I would be interesting though in seeing like what type of game, or I'm sorry, what type of film outside of Death Stranding that he would want to make a film out of, because he was asked if he would like to make an actual film, so like something that isn't related to a current project. I would be interested in seeing like what type of movie that would be, something that's like completely separate from any IP he's worked on before. So I would be interested in seeing what that would be like, because I think that having a film that's tied to a game IP, you're kind of restricted in a sense because people are already familiar with that IP and so they have expectations. But if you're doing something completely outside of an existing IP,
right,
you have more liberation. So I would be curious to see like a film that he would direct that would be like that. But yeah, we'll definitely see what happens if that happens. But yeah, Fizzant, I'll be interested in seeing what happens when that comes out, down the line. I might check that out.
yeah, for sure. And hopefully by that point he'll be done with this PlayStation exclusive nonsense.
Yes.
I mean, either way, like I'm perfectly fine waiting. It's really not a big deal to me. I mean, I still have various games that he has made that I have not been able to play yet, and I know whenever this game comes, like mechanics wise, that's going to be the big thing. I mean, of course, his storytelling is really good too, as well. I love the way he writes his stories, but the big thing for me is the gameplay. Like when I look at both Phantom Pain, well, I should say Metal Gear Solid V in general, both Phantom Pain and Ground Zeroes, and then I look at Death Stranding and just the level of like complexity to how the games are designed and how the gameplay functions. I'm just like I'm totally on board with anything he does, because I know that it's going to be complex in terms of its systems, but in such a way that it like feels really good, because he's just good at doing that. He's good at coming up with these ideas of how to make these games work really well. And I've been so impressed, especially with the last few games he's done. And even that little tiny bit I played of Zone of the Enders, like I really liked what I played. And I mean, of course, I want to go back and play all the previous ones before I play the one that I have on Steam. But either way, it's I say Kojima, take your time. I mean, who knows if he'll still be alive in 5 or 6 years? I mean, he just turned 60, and not necessarily that I think he's going to die, but he did say he got severely ill during the pandemic, and no one's guaranteed tomorrow. So we'll see what happens one way or another, and regardless of any of that, I look forward to checking out anything that he's going to be doing. So good stuff. All right, we're going to talk about Microsoft's testing.
Sure. Now, we've talked a little bit about this here and there, about potentially Microsoft's having some sort of merger with, or not merger, I should say, but testing with Steam for Xbox. And another story has come out recently, and this is according to an insider named Exta's, what? Good grief, it's a username by EXTAST. I'm sorry, 1S. I really don't know how to pronounce that. But saying that Microsoft has internally begun testing Steam integration within the Microsoft Store environment. And This also was on the podcast mentioned. Here's a quote. Xbox plus Steam are heading into the next generation, but steps are already being taken as Microsoft has just added the Steam application to the support software for its devices, appearing under the name of Steam Developer Beta. This, of course, is currently only available to certain employees and people who collaborate with Microsoft to provide support or develop certain things. This is more than just a detail because it logically reflects Microsoft's intention to facilitate coexistence and cooperation between its Xbox ecosystem and the gigantic PC platform that is Steam today. This integration will allow users to run Steam more smoothly and directly from Windows environments and in the future Xbox environments. I've been telling you that the next generation of Xbox is going to be more like a PC than a console. Everything is going to be developed around PC environments. Those logically need Steam integration, and you'll have that in your Microsoft Store when you turn on your next generation Xbox console. This will allow you to have Steam on your Xbox console and on any Windows device without the need for complex configurations, which is a key step for the experience of the future console. And then, that's mentioned, that this is not the first time it's mentioned. Jez Corden mentioned this before and predicted it, and that's really all the information that we have thus far. I've got several things that I've got to say, but what are your thoughts on this statement here?
Well, in short, I'm not at all surprised. This is something we've talked about quite a bit, and um, I look forward to seeing what's going to happen with this because, for one, I think it's a smart business move. Instead of trying to get people to buy their consoles, Microsoft has been slowly doing more and more integration with PC and everything. Starting with 2016 when they started putting their games on PC, and then they end up eventually doing day and date with everything, and have been doing it for some time, and a lot of their games sell really well. You look at Starfield was a huge seller on Steam, and people paying for the early access version. And the results have been mixed with a lot of different things, but it's still a matter of, okay, we can either hope that people will come to our console, particularly on PC, where they're less likely to do so, or we can meet them where they are and still get money from them, because either we get nothing from them or we get something from them, and something is better than nothing when it comes to money. It's simple math. And also because of the fact that consoles have always been a loss leader. They lose money on selling the consoles. Yes, they're increasing the prices to help make up for some of that, but really their focus is they are focused on bringing out content to more places so that more people will buy them, more people will get into their content, and then they make money from it. And they don't have to sell their console. If their consoles sell, great. If their consoles don't sell, that's still fine because they can still get people to buy their games. And this idea of Steam integration is, if this is actually real, it's huge. And it would also mean PlayStation games on Xbox, which would be hilarious. But, the reality is that it's just a further way in which these barriers are being broken down, and people need to get out of this console mentality because it's done. The console wars are over. PlayStation won the battle between Xbox and PlayStation because Xbox completely messed up last generation by starting off before it even launched with the statements from Don Matrick, and the fact that they were forcing people to use the Kinect, and they were charging $500, and then Sony in response did it $400 for the PS4, and having the online only stuff, which ultimately they ended up backtracking and everything else. And it's just like they screwed up last generation so bad that they haven't been able to catch up. They haven't been able to make up all the ground that they lost. And as a result, last generation was essentially the end of the console war between the two platforms. And Xbox slowly but surely has been moving in the direction of bringing their content to multiple platforms and trying to expand their audience further and further. And they've been doing it. Game Pass, is an option that people have. It gives people a different option besides having to buy a console, having to spend, full price for all these games. There's just a lot of different facets to all of it. And while I have never been a Microsoft fan and I've never bought an Xbox, I have no desire to ever buy an Xbox. The reality is that I still think, price increases aside, they've been doing the best things in terms of how they're handling moving this whole thing forward, moving alt gaming forward. So, like I said, that's not counting the price increases that they're doing or the AI stuff that I'm definitely not a fan of. But this idea of having Steam integrated into their Xbox ecosystem, I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial than people realize. And there's a lot of people who are just like, they're so stuck in a console mentality that they can't get it through their heads that there is a way to make this work. And my guess is that based on just this idea of it being integrated into the Microsoft Store, is it's going to be more or less, they're going to make it so that people who, you can essentially sign into your Steam account and connect it to your Microsoft Store so that all of your Steam games can show up on your Microsoft app. And then from there, it's like, okay, well, I can have all my Steam games show up here. Then, because they're already in the application, they'll be more likely to buy more games from that application because they have that integration. So they're not losing their Steam library, but then they're, more incentivized to buy them from the Microsoft Store instead, assuming that they can actually get the Microsoft Store to not be a complete piece of garbage that it is right now. So, I think it's a really smart move, and I think that it's going to pay off way more than people realize. But obviously, we'll wait to see what actually happens, and for all we know, this could all be complete nonsense, and someone's just screwing with us. It's like all those various rumors about Star Wars over the years about how it was going to get saved, and then it ended up just sinking further into the depths of despair. And anyway, that's it. That's what I got.
So, I like this idea from the perspective of a console, which also based on the way this was described here, I find kind of hilarious. Because of the fact that this is going to be treated sort of more as the next generation is going to be, the statement that it's going to be treated more like a PC than a console, which, is like, okay, it's a PC then, if it's not a console, which is kind of weird to hear, which I'm like, then, what is this, a PC or a console? But if we're treating it as a console, it'll be interesting that it has these types of options. And again, if you can connect your Xbox console to Steam and have your games show up, that's really cool, and I like that idea. And I think that it definitely allows you to have a larger library of games. But that being said, I also would assume that this integration would also appear on the actual PC side of things.
Right.
As far as the PC Microsoft Store, which it really doesn't make sense for me to have, because I feel like there's no point of having that integration on an actual PC. And and personally speaking, I feel like if these games are to appear on or if you want these games to be on the Microsoft Store, just have them be on the Microsoft Store. I don't feel like you should have. I feel like this is really just a launcher for a launcher. On the PC side of things, I think it's really just a launcher for a launcher, which I really dislike. I don't feel like there's a need to have a launcher just to launch Steam so you can launch your games. I mean,
let me push back on that slightly. I don't think that the idea is for it to launch Steam. I think the idea is that any games that you own on Steam would show up on Microsoft. So you wouldn't even have to launch Steam. You'd basically just be integrating that in. Kind of like how the Heroic launcher will let you add games from GOG and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, okay, but I mean, even then, still, we have GOG Galaxy, which does that. If you don't want to use the Heroic, because I mean, like, it does it for Steam and it does it for Microsoft. It does it for Epic Games as well. So I'm like, what's the point of that being a thing?
I think what it really comes down to is that if this is what they're actually doing, they're trying to make it so that people can have all these things in one spot. I mean, you think about it. We have games that we purchased, at least I do. Games that I purchased on other storefronts where I still add the shortcut to Steam because it's simpler than having to specifically have the separate launcher. I mean, you have to run the launcher every single time. Like, for example, the Red Dead Redemption 2. I originally bought the game on the Rockstar launcher. That was a pain in the butt. I hate that launcher. It's garbage. When I got it, and of course, I couldn't get it to run on Steam Deck. No matter what I did, I just couldn't get it working. Then when I bought it on Steam, then it launched flawlessly without any issues whatsoever. I didn't have to do any fiddling. I was able to just get it functioning right away. And I think the idea, and kind of going more into that, yes, in some ways it could end up being a launcher for a launcher, but sometimes there's just enough workaround to where you're not quite having to do all of that. Like, for example, Ubisoft games. You buy them on Steam, you're technically still having to do, I mean, it still uses the Ubisoft launcher login and so on and so forth, but it's nowhere near as tedious as it would be if you're just adding the launcher itself to Steam, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So, I mean, well, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that there's no way that it'll be clunky, because it probably will be, especially early on. But I think that there's ways that they could make it less clunky. And even if it is a little bit clunky, if it still is in such a way that it's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be a situation where it basically, like, you start up a game and then it launches up the Steam application and then all of that. It could just basically kind of like sort of launch it in the background like it does with like Ubisoft games and things like that, and just kind of bypass some of the annoyance aspects of it. And then even if it doesn't do any of that, even if it does just have that, it still is, you have a single place where people would be more motivated to say, hey, if I can just integrate these games in and then use this launcher so that way I have an easy way to access my Game Pass games and everything else while still being able to access my entire Steam library, that's something where I could see that being beneficial. Now, it's not going to sell me on anything. I'm not switching over to the Microsoft Store, because even if they drastically improve it, I have zero reason to use it, because I have, like, I think maybe 3 games on the Microsoft Store. It's probably not even, yeah, I think it's like 3 games. I have The Gunk, which I also have on Steam. I have Minecraft Legends, which I got it for free. And I have Wolfenstein 2, which I got for free, and I already had that on Steam. And it's like, apart from that, there's like zero reason whatsoever. So for me, it doesn't appeal to me at all. But I could see how someone, especially if it's someone transitioning from Xbox, they might be more interested in that sort of thing. You know, making that transition over to PC, because then they still have their Game Pass access.
Yeah, I mean, I just see it from a consumer standpoint where I would much rather just have the games be natively on the Xbox Store. I mean, even if it's bad, even the store is bad, I would really just rather have someone have the ability just to buy the games from the store if they choose to. I mean, I know a lot of it comes down to the developers or publishers for where they put their games, but I want the games to be available wherever they can go.
Well,
Even though I
that's
would.
the thing, though. There, a lot of those games are on the Microsoft Store. I think the whole point of this would be basically that this would make it so that people don't have to buy the games a second time to be able to access them, or have to run a separate launcher specifically in order to be able to play them. Especially if this ends up being integrated with Xbox. On PC, it's less of an issue, but on Xbox, I mean, it opens some things up. Of course, the other thing is there's certain games, particularly those from Sony, there's no chance they're going to be putting those on the Microsoft Store. So this is one way that people can access games like Spider-Man and Horizon and God of War and so on and so forth. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. I mean, in that case, if it's more so like with integration, then I don't have a problem with that. It's just, I guess I was looking from the standpoint if someone didn't have these games already, and it would be like, well, if I want to get these games, I would have to use Steam. Where it's like I have the mindset of sort of like I have with Epic Games. I would even though I love Steam and I despise Epic, I would still want people who, for whatever reason, use Epic Games to be able to play those games on Epic. And sort of like the same thing, like if people want to buy these games on the Microsoft Store, I want them to be able to buy the games there. So that's, I guess, with my mentality there. But I mean, if it is just integration, I don't have a problem with that. But again, this is only on the PC side of things. I find this more beneficial if on the console side for the Xbox perspective, because having access to a whole library of games that you haven't had access to before is just huge. And if it is going to be, if the next Xbox is going to be more PC oriented, I think it's going to be a whole lot easier to do, because if it is going to be maybe under the hood just Microsoft Windows, then that means you can use certain apps that you couldn't use on an Xbox console. So you could use Steam and just run that, even if it's just through the Microsoft Store. So it wouldn't take a lot to get that running. So I mean, if they can execute that perfectly, then hey, I mean, kudos for Microsoft for finding a nice little loophole on that end. So I mean, it definitely could make the Xbox interesting. Now that being said, would I necessarily buy an Xbox for that? No. I mean, I've got a PC already. I've already got Steam, but for someone who doesn't have a PC or isn't interested in PC gaming, that could be worthwhile checking out. And I mean, who knows? That could even inadvertently get people to be interested in PC because of this. And like, this Steam thing has like a lot of games I've never heard of before. It has like different types of games. Maybe I'll try this PC thing out. So I don't know. And yeah, it's like the gateway drug of PC, essentially.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, that's all I've got to say.
All right. Well, I think that's a good spot to stop in terms of news stories. Did you have any other topics you wanted to discuss?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, then let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Start us off.
All right. So I've got a couple things for Expedition 33. And I think this first one you might have covered before, or at least to some degree. If not, then this will be a first time. So this is going to be for the first obstacle course that you face on the beach. So when you go there to on the beach and you're going through the obstacle course and you jump onto the logs, stay slightly to the left of the middle, because for some reason it's easier to slip off, that I found. So I stay slightly to the left from the center when I'm trying to maneuver, so that way I don't fall off. I mean, I still have occasionally fallen off the logs, but I just found it easier if I was slightly to the left. I think partially it's because of the camera. It's because it's not perfectly centered behind you. So that's like one thing to make it easier that I found. Also, when you get to the rotating platforms, instead of trying to rush through to jump onto the next rotating platform, just wait for the platform to go completely around before you jump onto the next platform. Otherwise, you're going to be fighting against momentum and stuff. So rather than do that, wait for it to rotate around, then jump instead of trying to fight against it. And then the next recommendation I have is going to be in Crushing Cavern, there is a boss there, and your first inclination is going to be to run to it and to attack it for the first strike. However, there is a barrier that actually triggers the boss fight before you actually get close enough that you would think you would be to reach it, to hit it. So you might actually run into the boss and start the fight. And you don't want to do that because you need to have the first strike. So slowly inch your way to the boss and keep trying to attack it until you eventually hit it. Otherwise, like I said, you'll run into the boss and then you'll lose the first strike advantage that you definitely need to get through 6 turns. But those are my recommendations.
All right, good stuff. Well, my recommendation, I just have one thing this time around, mostly because I forgot to write stuff down, but if you want to play Darksiders War Mastered Edition on the Steam Deck, run it with compatibility mode of Proton 9.0.4, as that should fix any issues that you would have otherwise. Especially with cutscenes and crashing. In my experience so far, I have not had any problems since I started doing that. But that is what I have. So, your dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be, do not buy a new GPU with 8 gigs of VRAM or less. So NVIDIA has just released the 5060, and that is an 8 gigabyte only model, and the reviews have been abysmal. There's minimal performance gains over previous gen cards, if any at all, and it's been struggling with, like the 4070, I would say, and it just hasn't been good. And that being said, AMD is not exempt from this, because even though they have a 16 gigabyte model, there is also an 8 gigabyte 9060 XT that is going to be coming out soon in the future. So definitely avoid the 8 gigabyte model as well. Definitely get the 16 gigabyte model instead. And so even if for whatever crazy reason you decide to get one of these cards, or if you decide to just get a card with 8 gigs of VRAM in general, do not pay more than $200. Just because these days 8 gigs is only gonna get you so far. And I mean, if you already have a card that has 8 gigs of memory, VRAM from like an older generation, fine. That is what it is. You can't help that. But if you're going to buy something in today's market, do not buy one with 8 gigs of VRAM. At least do 12. That's all I've got.
Good recommendation. I think my laptop, I'm pretty sure the 4060 mobile version is 8 gigs, but it's been serving me pretty well so far. I don't really have any complaints. So either way, no, I agree with you though. With the 5060 series especially, I've heard lots of bad things about those. So, and NVIDIA has been doing some more shady stuff with that. All right. As for my dissuasion, I forgot to write something down. So, oh yes. So I am going to say, do not, at least on PC right now, do not get Doom the Dark Ages right at the moment. Primarily because of the fact that it has forced de novo. And if you try to play it on the Steam Deck, adding a Proton layer, you basically get locked out of playing the game. I can't remember if it basically puts a temporary ban on your account, I think is what it does, because of de novo.
Wow.
And so yeah, don't get Dune: The Dark Ages on PC until they fix issues like that. I don't want Denuvo anyway, but yeah, it's just not acceptable. I mean, they need to do something about that and fix that problem. At the very least, fix it so that you don't get your account temporarily banned, or I mean, that you can't not play the game that you paid for. Because that's just stupid. Just because you're trying to play it on the Steam Deck, it's like, I'm not trying to cheat here in a single player game. Or no, I guess Denuvo's less about anti-cheat, it's more about anti-piracy, but regardless, it's stupid. Yeah. So, that's what I got.
Very good. Very good dissuasion.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I finally put out a new video. It was talking about the latest incident or latest update in Power World as a result of the ongoing litigation with Nintendo, and also my stance with Nintendo moving forward. But yeah, and I'm trying to decide what the next video is going to be. I feel like the next one, which will depend on when I finish it, is going to possibly be a full review. Well, maybe not completely full because I do want to avoid spoilers, but it will be a spoiler-free review of Expedition 33 once that's finished. But of course, we'll just see how long it takes me to get through that. But that's the next thing that I sort of have in mind. But yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, good stuff. Well, as far as where you can find me, of course, on YouTube at the Frozen Gamer 87, which is my gaming channel. I haven't had any new content for a bit, but there's still plenty of good stuff to look at. Hopefully sometime soon I'll be doing one of those dads in gaming interviews, but I'm still kind of waiting to hear back from the guy who I'm supposed to be interviewing. So he's a school teacher, so I don't know when his school year's over, and I haven't heard back from him in a while, so I was just kind of following up as I can. But hopefully I'll be able to get him on pretty soon. Then, of course, there is the channel for the podcast, for both for the video version of the podcast, which is on both YouTube and Rumble. On YouTube, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can find us there. And that's where we put the video version every week, 7 a.m. Central Time on Fridays. Barring any issues with that. Sometimes Rumble, it ends up being a little bit later, depending on whether I get the editing done early enough to get the video put over there as well. But video version of the podcast, not only do you get to see our beautiful faces, but you also get to see clips from games we've been playing. If we talk about current trailers, that sort of thing, usually we'll include clips from those as well. And it's just it's an easy way to get a little more interactive than you get from just the audio version. But speaking of the audio version, the audio-only version goes up on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, etc. That normally goes live at 12 a.m. Central Time every Friday. Includes all the same content that's in the video version, minus the video portion, obviously. And yeah, that's it for that. We do have the Orange Box Pod Clips, which is on both YouTube and Rumble, and that includes clips from the various discussion segments we have for the podcast. Hasn't been updated in a while on either end, so just keeping that out there for the sake of whenever we actually get to the point of having those up, especially because if someone's listening sometime in the future, by the time you're listening, there may be more of a consistent schedule on that front. but just wanted to mention that. And then there is my YouTube cooking channel, Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And no new videos for a while, but there's some over 30 recipes, somewhere between 30 and 40 recipes on there. All really good stuff. And there should be more in the future. It just, I haven't done any in a while. So, yeah, I think that's everything on that front. If you want to contact us, you can send us an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can write us on X/Twitter @theorangeboxpod. And you can comment on the video version of the podcast as well. And if you have any questions, comments, want to tell us to Persona 3 ourselves, any of those things, feel free to reach out. And that should be everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, get out of my way! Orange Box Podcast out.